Welcome to Big Closet, Small Planet, made possible with the generous support from the C&A Foundation, the H&M Foundation, the Rylander Foundation, and Tencel. I'm Mike Schrager. Is clothing recycling going to take off tomorrow or in 10 years? Is China a foe or friend when it comes to working with driving change towards sustainability in the apparel sector? If I was an investor, what new technologies would I invest in that both are commercially viable and actually reduce impact on the planet? These are just some of the questions I'm going to be asking our guest today, Edwin Keh. Edwin, we're very happy to have you here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Edwin is in town in Stockholm for, I guess, it's the Global Change Award activities during this week.
Correct.
And we'll get into that in a little bit in terms of what you're doing with the H&M Foundation. But I'm super glad to have you because we get to pick your brain. And so just quickly, so the audience knows who you are, my understanding is that you have a long background in retail, as well as now running the CEO of the Hong Kong Research Institute of Textiles and Apparel Limited, or HK Rita, as we say in the business. Yeah. Is it a limited because it's a commercial company? Is that why it's called?
It is limited because it's none of the above. It's sort of like a government funded, but they don't want responsibility over it. So it's oversight is with a board, an industry board. So
okay,
it's a kind of a mutant.
I understand. So you're based in Hong Kong, of course.
Yes.
Did you grow up in Hong Kong?
Yes, I grew up in Hong Kong. I just don't sound like I grew up in Hong Kong.
Okay, and why is that?
Because my wife is from Waterloo, Iowa, and I'm the only person in Hong Kong that has ever visited Waterloo, Iowa.
I'm from the United States. I don't know where that is.
It's in the middle of nowhere. It's a quaint,
it's like cornfields.
It's the field of dreams type of thing. Yeah. So anyway, this is good in-law management. They were very upset with me for marrying their only daughter and taking her away to far away in the middle of nowhere, Hong Kong. And so I was determined to become the favorite son-in-law. So this took 10 years, learning about American football and all that good stuff. And so yes, and I'm now officially the favorite son-in-law.
Is that right?
Yes.
They would corroborate that. Okay. So you've spent some time in the United States, and I understand that you've both worked in operations in terms of your career. So you worked with Walmart. You've been in charge of Donna Karan International, right?
Correct.
My understanding, you've worked with Payless Shoes, right?
Chapter 11, yes.
I'm sure you did a good job. And then today you're on the faculty of both the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania and the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, and
Correct.
You do teaching. You know that we have something in common.
Yes, you mentioned you also went to UPenn.
I went to the University of Pennsylvania as an undergraduate, and I have friends, colleagues, roommates who went to Wharton.
Do you remember the mascot?
The Penn, wasn't it the... Isn't the Quaker?
Yeah, there
you
go.
The Quaker, of course. The people who are listening to this from Penn are gonna stone me. But we used to make fun of the Wharton guys because we thought, oh, they're just doing business. They're so one-dimensional. I think I mentioned that we were just probably jealous that they were getting jobs directly after, and we weren't. So Wharton I know well. And so you've been teaching there and thinking.
Yes. Coming up to I think I started 2010, so on my 9th year on faculty there. Yeah, I dropped out of my commercial career. I really wanted to stop and have a place to think and reflect. And I was in operations most of my career, and I wanted to really think about bigger subjects. And so when I stopped working in commerce, the Wharton School was very kind to invite me to do some work there, do some research there, and then that deteriorated into allowing me to do some teaching there. And so and I told the dean, my exact words was, when you allow me to teach at Wharton, my reputation will go up, but Wharton's reputation will probably go down. Just so you know.
Okay. So how did then you end up after doing some work in those companies in
Right.
operations in retail, then Wharton? How did you end up at HK Rita?
HQ Rita, the Hong Kong Research Institute for Textile and Apparel, is one of 5 applied research centers that is funded by something called the Innovation and Technology Fund, which is a fund that the Hong Kong government has set aside to do applied research. And this is sort of, they define it as research that is between what universities do, basic research or theoretical research, and research that is very commercial, that companies tend to do. And so these are things probably about 3 to 5 years to market. And in most cases, or in a lot of cases, this is where sort of research goes to die, right? They have the academic research is done, but it's not commercial enough for companies to pick up. And so this is where we sit, and this is an attempt by the Hong Kong government to redefine Hong Kong's value-added role in the global supply chain. Up to about 20, 30 years ago, we were our value creation was in providing labor. We made things, but as manufacturing went farther and farther afield, the government wanted to think about how do we, what role should we play? And innovation became something that they thought would be right for Hong Kong.
And the core focus of HK Rita is what? I mean, I'm assuming it's in textiles because we've
Yes.
talked a bit about that. But what do you do in the textile sector?
So this is what we tell people we do, right? So we are focused in 4 big areas, and so we do material science research, so develop new types of materials. We work on engineering solutions, new machinery and systems to manufacture. We work on testing methods and standards, and then we work on complete supply chain solutions, enterprise-wide solutions. And under there are 3 major domains that we focus on, and this is in the area of sustainability. So all things green, recyclable, and that are good for us and for our environment. We work on Industry 4.0 challenges. So how do we automate and have intelligent manufacturing? And then we work on anything that does that changes with society or for the benefit of society. So how does textile and apparel support the new lifestyles that we all have?
And so given this technological focus, innovation focus, how would you assess the global apparel industry today in terms of its innovation rank? Is this an industry still lagging? Is it an industry that's innovative? Where do we stand from your perspective?
Yeah, well, certainly there's lots of opportunities for this industry, and you can think of it in 2 ways, right? The first is in terms of the way the industry operate. How do we operate? And you can see basically there hasn't been a lot of changes in the way. Even though trade and commerce has changed so much and consumption has changed so much, we've gone e-commerce and omni-channel, but we still see the same infrastructure and the same way business is conducted in the apparel industry. So that's one. The other way to look at what is happening in the industry is that, let's say 10 years ago, the only thing you can do with your telephone is you make phone calls. Today, your phone is the heart of your social life. It informs you. It protects you. It keeps you healthy. It is your wallet. So it does all this function for us. So 10 years ago, you buy a T-shirt, you got a T-shirt. Today, you buy a T-shirt, you got a T-shirt, right? And so our apparel is, for most of us, the most expensive, dumb system that we carry around all day with us, without any additional features or functionality to it.
So we've got no more added value. It's in some ways it's served its function, and we're happy with that.
Yeah. Would you buy a 10-year-old cell phone? Probably not. But that same white T-shirt is kind of sort of what you bought 10 years ago. So we are fairly far behind in terms of changing with the way we live and the way we use things in our lives.
And do you see that, given that you're working on these cutting edge areas, do you see that about to change in the textile industry, or is it still a very incremental process ahead of us?
I think we're ripe for disruption. That there are lots of opportunities for people to come along and just really radically change what we're doing. This whole area has become a science, and we still think of it as an art.
Which area are you speaking about?
Fashion, apparel. It's still quite emotional. It's still quite of a impulsive, creative process without the backbone of the discipline of the engineering behind and the business case behind it.
Okay, very interesting. So let me push that one step further. Given where you're sitting, you talked about robotics. You talked about these quite advanced research areas. What's your sense? Is the supply chain going to be disrupted by robots, making the clothes, by 3D printing ending up in regions where they're regional instead of based on these global supply chains? Do you see a sudden change or a rapid change in the way that supply chains are set up?
I suspect the change for our industry is not going to come so much from the way things are made, but how things are made. And by that I mean that the things that will disrupt us will be the information age, will be the data behind what we make, so that we are making the products for customers and for specific application for customers. So it's not so much does a robot sew my T-shirt or does a human sew my T-shirt, because I think that will happen whichever is more efficient way. That's the way to go, and there's nothing very exciting about that. But what is exciting is the knowledge and the intelligence behind it. Your earlier question really is revolving around this one notion, I think, about the industry that we have to get across, and that is that we are still thinking like we're in the industrial age, whereas the rest of the world and most of the global economy has moved into the knowledge economy, the knowledge age. And the fashion industry and the textile apparel industry just hasn't made that transition yet.
And so I'm trying to manifest that in a vision. What is it? Could it look like if we all did that, if everything was data connected and we were mining data and we were adapting according to data, would we still, and we can move on from this in a second, but I wanted to see, will we still be producing clothes in Bangladesh or in China and India, or sewing clothes there, and shipping them across the world, or will we be back to more regional, local production? I don't know if any of your insights give you some hints on that.
I think we're in places like China, Vietnam, Bangladesh for the wrong reasons these days. We were there 20 years ago because it was the cheapest place to get things made, and we can make lots of the same thing very quickly. Today we should be there because it's the best place for something to be made, and to the extent that they continue to be the best place for things to be made, because we can get things to consumers faster, because that's where the consumer of tomorrow lives, because it satisfies the requirements a consumer has for the apparel, then we'll stay there. Right?
So I understand you're involved in a research collaboration with the H&M Foundation.
Correct.
Okay. And its focus is on the recycling part of the industry.
Right.
Can you describe more what that work is?
So we're on year 3 of a 4-year research collaboration with the H&M Foundation. And the foundation came to us 3 years ago to look for resources to help them around questions like circularity and recycling. And what we proposed to them was we had this series of ideas, of notions that we would like to flesh out about recycling. What is the most efficient way to recycle? What are some of the other ways of thinking about recycling? And are there models of recycling that solves not only the science problem, but the logistics problem, the business problems for it? And we said to them honestly at that point in time, we don't know which one of these will work. And we want to go through a series of experiments just to see where we land. Would they like to take that risk with us? Would they like to go on that journey with us? And surprise, they said sure. that they were happy to do that. And we said, and we would like to do it because this is such a global, universal problem. We would like to have these be open collaborations. That is that when we solve the problems, anybody and everybody can have access to these resources.
Okay, so it's open source, as you say. It's there's no ownership by
Yeah.
HK Rita.
The model that we created was, let's create a research platform around a common challenge in recycling. And then we want to get to the answers, but we also want to get there quickly. And the way to do that is to have multidisciplinary stakeholders and experts come onto this platform and work with us so that we can simultaneously solve a whole lot of problems at the same time. And then let's not worry so much about filing IPs and secrecy and things like that. Let's just open it up for all the stakeholders. Then we can get everybody to give us their best work. And then as long as we do the right thing, everybody will benefit from it. And the rewards will flow from for us solving these problems. And they were game because I think this is such a big problem that they're okay with that. So it was an experiment, one to experiment on the whole model of experiment, and then it was a fast track approach to solving specific science problems.
How did you decide which recycling research to pursue? Because my understanding is there's lots of different methods out there in the lab.
Right.
Some have gone a little bit further than lab, and there are companies being started, but often they have very slightly different approaches to getting the chemical to break up the polymers and et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So did you sort of list all the possible options in the beginning and then zero in on here's the most realistic? How did you think about that?
Kind of sort of like that. You described it real well. We basically said, look, there's three big routes, right? There's a physical, mechanical recycling, there is a chemical recycling, and there's biological recycling. We probably won't spend a lot of time on mechanical recycling because that's quite mature. We may do some incremental improvements there. We are excited about some form of chemical recycling, and we think there's a lot of merit to biological recycling. So we said, so 2 out of 3 we're excited about. In chemical recycling, we know there are about half a dozen routes that we want to go down and try different types of methods to that. And then biological, we've already done some work in the past breaking down material and creating fibers from it. So we kind of sort of know which direction we're using fermentation and enzymes to separate and reprocess material. So we listed about 6 or 7, we thought, high potential routes that we can go down. And the first 6 months or so was basically narrowing down to about 3 directions that we want to go. And eventually we settled on 2, and that's where we are today.
And what are those? Are they chemical? Are they biological? Are they both?
So we have a big research results in the chemical, but actually what happened was when we went down the chemical route, we found that we were creating new problems as we were solving old problems. But that there's a big toxic waste stream when you use chemistry to break things up. There's usually a lot of acids and a lot of corrosive material involved, and so we said, now we have to mitigate that. So we said, well, what if we just started taking chemistry out? What if we take more and more chemicals out of that process, which is what we did. And so our breakthrough that we announced 2 years ago was we figured out a way to do hydrothermal separation of material in the lab. And then last year, we built our first industrial scale hydrothermal recycling system.
And for the layperson, unpack what hydrothermal means.
It's exactly that. It's just using heat and pressure to separate material and nothing
else.
No
chemicals.
No chemicals.
Wow. With all this discussion globally that we need this chemical recycling process, you've gone around that.
Yes, and not only that, we actually are now that process, because it's so benign. We are going from fiber to fiber. So today, for instance, in polyester, if you want to recycle polyester, you break everything down, and then you melt them down to chips, and then you have to melt spin the chips, and so you actually go down a fairly long, energy intensive, and quite complicated route to get back to fiber. We are going from fiber. We're processing fiber. We're separating them, and then the product comes out as fiber. And the cool thing about what we're doing is, because it's so benign, what goes in is what comes out. We don't harm the material in the process.
So how long from when you started this project to getting the breakthrough did it take?
The breakthrough happened. We got lucky. The breakthrough happened very much within the first 14 months or so. We were down to we knew we had something, because we were pretty close to almost chemical free, and then we built our system about so 3 years in. We were at industrial scale.
And you said you got lucky. Do you really think that?
I think we got lucky.
The reason I bring it up
Yeah.
is because I've been involved in research projects, right? And most of them, because there's very little government funding
Yeah.
in the areas where we've been involved. These are long-term projects through universities, some research institutes, but often those are set up and they take 4 years, 4
Yeah.
years, 8 years, 10 years.
Yeah.
By the time you get even some decent lab results, not commercially scaled, they've been around for 10
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
And you look at that process and go, we'll never get there at this pace. At least that's the intuition you have. Do you
Yeah.
recognize that challenge?
Sure. You know, academic researchers and research scientists are rewarded for staying in the lab and for publishing and for doing theoretical work. They are not rewarded for applied solutions. And that's why we had to break the mold. I say we got lucky because there's a couple of things that happened. We were in the right place at the right time. We're doing all this research in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is just a great place to be to do these types of research, because it touches everybody's global supply chain. Doesn't matter who you are, sooner or later your supply chain goes through Hong Kong, either because you're financing it through Hong Kong, or there's some logistics partner in Hong Kong, or you're doing some sourcing in Hong Kong, you're buying materials through some Hong Kong company. And so we have great visibility upstream and downstream from where we are. We were in the right place at the right time. And then we are lucky because we have a fairly small organization with fairly low overheads. So we operate somewhat below the radar, because we're neither public nor private. So we don't have a lot of adult supervision. So we get to take on probably more risks than most, because there's nobody there putting the brakes on us.
But it sounds like there's a couple of things there. One is, how do you, given the time sensitivity we have for many of these environmental challenges, that we need to speed up this process from research to commercialization.
Right.
And it sounds like you're working in models that could help us do that, because we're never going to achieve it if everyone works in this old model. Do you recognize that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, hey, we could still be shut down next year when people come in and say, you guys are crazy. But the model we use is the software development model. If you think about it, is that you ship 1.0, and you want to ship 1.0 as quickly as possible. And 1.0, has got bugs in it. And you fix that in 1.1. And then if 1.1 doesn't do it, you do 1.2 or 2.0 or whatever. But you really get to a viable commercial product or system as quickly as possible, and then deal with the imperfections and the annoyances, and you optimize it once you ship, and that's kind of sort of.
And that's a very different mentality than traditional research in the labs or at universities have ever had. Right. That hasn't somehow broken through. Do you see a world where we start to do rapid research? rapid research where we
We hope so.
Yeah.
We hope so. I
Yeah.
mean, well, there's a couple of mantras we tell everybody that we go by. One of them is closure is overrated. So don't worry about. And those of you who have visited my office will see how messy I am. So, but there's a you have to tolerate a degree of messiness and uncertainty, as long as you're heading in the right direction. We say that's okay. And the other big mantra that we shipping beats everything, right? So ship as quickly as possible. But the thing behind all of that is this notion of solving big problems. If we have an urgent enough, big enough problem that everybody agrees on and everybody feels that the sooner we get to the answers, the better it is, then I think we can attract the right people and the right minds to come along and help us solve this problem.
So climate change.
Yeah.
What are I mean, you can't get bigger than that.
Right.
These to me would indicate that your way of working is the way you need to work more so than what we have today.
Right.
And for our industry, I'm thinking about all these startups, these pilot projects, right? They start, they never scale.
Right.
We've moved quickly to a new mentality that our industry needs to be innovative. That's been great.
Yeah.
But we're still playing in the minor leagues, you could argue. We're playing with coffee money.
Yeah.
We're playing with a system that doesn't really understand maybe the rules of poker.
Right.
Or the rule
Right.
of that kind of stuff, where you need to invest in a bunch for one to get, or statistics
Right.
for one to win.
Exactly. And unfortunately, in the environment that we're in right now, we tend to overpromise, right? So to get funding, you just promise the moon, and you it's hard to get there and so think about what we did with the H&M Foundation. We were brutally honest early on. We said we know there's a dozen roads we need to go down. We probably will end up with two. So there's a 80-90% chance of failure there, or a lot of what we do is not going to result in everything. And then we get people to come along this crazy ride with us. So another mantra we have at the center is that if we're going to fail, let's fail spectacularly, right? Because then at least we're doing something worthwhile in the process, right?
Fair enough. I'm thinking about the role of finance and all this, coming back to that.
Right.
If there's nobody to finance these spectacular failings, we don't have even a chance of getting those unique breakthroughs.
Right.
Is the model unique in Hong Kong Rita? I mean, I don't know of other research institutes where you have government funding and this hybrid organization that allows you to test these things. Is this?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I like I said, we got lucky. The Hong Kong government is in this period of they recognize that there is a need for change, so they would invest in figuring out what that change is. I think would be one thing I'd say. The other thing I would say too is think about this model that I've talked about, building a research platform. One of the cool things about what we're trying to do is we're building business models, and we are solving everything at the same time. And the notion there is that if there is something at the end of this that would be profitable for everybody, as opposed to a hope of being profitable, then I think everybody will be willing to sign up for this, right? Because we have the end user is in the room, the engineering people in the room, the manufacturers in the room. So we've got all the stakeholders working together, and they can all benefit from this.
So it's like an abundance mentality that you
Right.
know if you put in that it's going to create more for everyone,
Right.
not just a
right.
limited group of investors or stakeholders.
Right.
Wow. So if you've given your view, now we just talked about recycling and this amazing breakthrough. Is it where do we stand now? Is it in the pilot process to test if it works at scale, or
Right.
how do we go from this breakthrough to something that becomes mainstream?
So September 4th last year, we announced three things at the same time that day. We opened up a garment to yarn factory. So that's a post-consumer garment to yarn recycling facility. We announced the hydrothermal system, which exists in the same factory, and then we announced a garment-to-garment retail model that we built a shop. So the first two are two industry solutions. The garment-to-garment factory today produces about 3 tons of yarns to be made into garments again. The hydrothermal system is about 100 kilos a day. We are right in the process of scaling that up to, let's say, about a ton a day. And then we have a shop that consumers come, and we will turn their old clothes into new clothes for them.
Right. People just they see it happening in front of them.
Yeah. It's we put a cotton mill and a garment factory in a 40-foot container, and we took the 4 walls of the container off and put glass up, and we put that in a shopping mall. And so if you turn in clothes for us to process, you can basically do a anti-clockwise walk once around that 40-foot container, and you can see the 8 steps of what we're doing. That turns your old garment, breaks it down into fiber, turns it back into yarn, and then we have a 3D knitting system at the end of it.
So that's the traditional mechanical recycling.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Mechanical with a twist.
With a twist.
Yeah.
And you won the Red Dot Award for that one, or for all of the activities?
For that one.
Yeah.
Last
for those
week.
of you who follow the Red Dot Award, I know that Edwin was surprised to receive it, because it's not usually what they get in their research fields.
Yeah, the red dots are not for geeks, right? And so we are definitely geeks, and so this is where all the hip and cool people get. So we were very excited to get the red dots. You can see a bunch of geeks celebrating that, Chinese geeks for that matter.
So if you take a step back and you look at all the different sort of glimmering innovations talked about in our bubble, right? We hear everything from algae fibers to artificial intelligence to blockchain. We have sort of platforms that you can pre-order, so that classic stuff. You have sort of tailored clothes that sort of body scanning. There's just a whole range of interesting ideas out there that give a lot of energy. A lot of fun to think about, and great inspiration about what the future could hold. Which of these kinds of ideas beyond the recycling do you think are realistic, and which are just big fantasies that we may be wasting our time on?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't have a crystal ball to see which one of these will be the next big thing. But I do believe a couple things that we fundamentally need to do. Because it's somewhat, if you talk about all those types of new ideas, it's a little bit of the cart before the horse, right? Fundamentally, we have to think about things like what is sustainable consumption? What makes sense given the current situation that we're in with the global population growing, with 300 million Chinese consumers coming up to become middle class and consuming for the first time, 250 million Indians who are about to become middle class and consuming for the first time. How do we live in a world where we have that much consumption that is going to be added in the next decade? And how do we behave in that world?
You think we can potentially be distracted by these ideas without looking at the fundamental goals of them?
Right.
And so that also brings me back to recycling. You've worked with that. The research that I see says, recycling won't address the climate problem per se, right? It won't address it unless we reduce consumption.
Right.
Is that something you see yourself, even though you do the research?
I agree. I think that there is no way we can recycle our way back to health, right? The recycling decision is made at the point of consumption today, given the current environment that we're in. So I go back to this. We need to fundamentally think about lifestyles and philosophies of consumption. Which economic model makes sense for us going forward? And then from there, what actions do we take? What products do we consume that make sense in an environment like that? So let's really look at the forest before we start looking at the trees. Right?
So that makes me think about your interesting position in Hong Kong, sort of a bridge between, I don't know if this is outdated terminology, between the West and the East,
Right.
right? Between the Asia and China, and between also with your wife and your connections in North America.
Yeah.
You're sitting there. For those of us who don't spend lots of time in China or in Asia, but understand that that's where things are growing more rapidly than ever and where a lot of big decisions are being made which affect the whole planet.
Right.
From your experience, how should we understand the Asian or Chinese view of sustainability?
Right. Right.
Are they friends or are they foes? Do we have allies? It's a different culture. How serious are they taking this sustainability movement?
I
And
don't
I want
know.
you to speak for the whole country, the whole culture.
Yeah. So first of all, I don't think it's a binary. I don't think it's a black and white situation that we're in. What we're looking at is here's the ascent of a whole economy like China, and they are going to be different, and they are going to be coming on the world stage. How do we live in a world in which China is a close second to the U.S. And how do we collaborate with each other in a world like that? Let's put it in historic context. The 20th century was the most violent century in the history of the civilization of the world. I'm sorry, I'm getting very big here. But we began the 20th century with not one but two global conflicts, World War I and World War II. And when the word war was different from what we think about war today, it was really very indiscriminate bombing and killing of people, and there's no such thing as collateral damage. Everybody was going to be a fair game. And we into this 20th century, in the 1970s, we were about to make killing even more efficient with thermonuclear weapons. And then the thing that changed history, in my mind, the thing that brought us the current textile, apparel, fashion, global supply chain today is an incident that happened February 21st, 1972. February 21st, 1972 is when Nixon met Mao in Beijing. And Nixon went to see Mao to open a new front for this Cold War with the Soviet Union, and not to think about what the global supply chain of the fashion industry was look like. But as a result of which, the all of civilization in history took a pause from this very, very tense us against them world to the next 40 years in which we did business with each other. And we traded with each other, and we had relative peace. I mean, except for certain places in the Middle East, we've never had this long period of prosperity, of peace, and of global trade. My point is in meandering through all this is that it seems like as human beings, we have two defaults. We fight with each other or we trade with each other. I much prefer we trade with each other. And so that, to me, is the perspective to think about China. It is an emerging economy. They did the 200 years of the Industrial Revolution in 20, right? No large economy in the history of mankind has grew as fast as they did. And we haven't even started to think about India, because I think India is probably along that same trajectory as well. So we need to think about how we all coexist together, right? They went from a developing economy to a developed economy very quickly. And also don't forget that from the 1980s to 2000, something on the order of magnitude, about 300 million Chinese moved from the countryside to the city. It went from 25% urbanized population to now almost 60% urbanized population. That is the largest movement of mammals in the history of civilization, right? And by and large, we sort of didn't even pay any attention to it. So in urbanized settings, your lifestyle completely changes, right? You consume more energy, you become more professional. You work more. You don't have an extended family anymore. You rely on a nuclear family, and you consume a lot more. That's the world we have to look forward to. Sustainable consumption in that context is how do we consume within the planetary confines in a way so that we can have 300, 400, 500 million more middle class citizens in the world.
Professor, well, you just taught me a whole lot. That is very poignant, given that we want to focus on trade instead of war.
Yeah.
How do we create trade models that you say operate within these confines? Because today the model of trade is about growth, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
This is what we all talk about. We know it's the elephant in the room, quote unquote.
Yeah.
If a company, those that you work with, have to grow at 6 or 8%, that's what they're expected to do. That's part of their prognosis. And they want to also reduce their climate emissions to zero. It just seems like that model doesn't go hand in hand with where we need to be.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to do.
Right.
So
should we have a more honest discussion? Are we having enough honest discussion with the playmakers, the influencers, the power brokers about what's really happening now?
So I see these things in three horizons, right? So the long horizon is exactly as you just pointed out. Listen, the current model just doesn't work given the extra number of bodies that are consuming. So what is the new model? And I think that's a 10-year horizon that we need to figure out what that looks like. Is it the sharing economy? Is it some sort of a different notion of what ownership is like? I don't know, but good brains, good minds need to get together and think about that. The midterm solution is to figure out how to solve the problems that we already are in today, which is that's the 3 to 5 year horizon. That is, listen, we've got all this polyester, we've got all this pollution, we've got all these issues with using agricultural land to grow cotton. That isn't going to work when we have so many people. So what does that look like? How do we deal with stuff that already are in the marketplace? All the plastic waste that are floating around our oceans. How do we process those? And then I think what's right in front of us is are there opportunities for us to make some, in the context of what we're thinking about, to make some experiments, do some small tests to give us direction in the right general direction. So if we go straight to let's disrupt the entire current model, I don't think that many CEOs will give you a lot of room to play there. But if we sort of work backwards from there, and let's just fix some of the problems that we see around us right away, and then let's work towards a new model that is still financially or economically makes sense for these enterprises, but it's in a new and different way.
So would you call yourself an optimist, a pessimist, a realist? How would you describe yourself?
I'm definitely an optimist. Very much in the optimist camp. I think that we are as human beings are so resourceful, and if we put our mind to it, we have been able to solve everything that is put in front of us. All the obstacles, and we have been able to correct all the mistakes that we have made in the past. And certainly a lot of that will come from good science, but a lot of that will also come from good collaboration, cooperation with each other. I think the era of living in denial is over, and we need to come to recognize that we have a challenge that we need to work on together. I think we need to own that challenge. And then I think we need to think of it also as a business opportunity. The first mover to solve this will be the most successful enterprise. And in the world that we're in the economy that we're in, it is probably going to be a binary. That we'll have big winners, people who do the right thing, businesses that do the right thing, and we'll have others that consumers will just abandon because they were not part of the solution.
Edwin, should I call you Professor Keh?
Edwin, please.
Edwin, thank you very much. For you listening, we want to hear back about what you think, so don't hesitate to reach out to us with feedback, comments, or ideas for future podcast topics, or specifically about Edwin's views. You can reach us at bigclosets@sustainablefashionacademy.org. Hope to hear from you soon.